She's not collaborating. She's actively resisting.
Engage.
Citizens of Earth, gird your loins and open your minds. You have now willfully submitted to the Party for Prosperity and Supervillainy.
Hello, hello, and welcome to the 15th official episode of the Party for Prosperity and Supervillainy. You may have noticed that I am not the one that's currently on the screen. Some mysterious technology seems to have entered the picture, but don't worry. I am looking for a way to get her to step aside for just a moment. Hey, there we go. Look, it's me. I am known by many names, but today you may call me the Mad Hat Cat. If you must refer to me in the third person, I bestow upon you the lexemical power of the singular they, them, theirs, themselves. So please go tell your friends and family of the wonders of our most deviant and devious party. So what I would like to do now is introduce all of you to a terrible and heinous figure that I have had the pleasure, or displeasure, should I say, of knowing for many years. May I introduce to you Dr. Zodiac? And let's actually make sure we can get him on screen.
There we go. Okay, there we are. Wow, there's sound and visual.
There's sound and picture. And like, you're center stage now.
Oh my God, dear Lord. You put me there? God,
I did.
I am known as Doc Zodiac, mad cult leader, forward-looking visionary, and mixologist extraordinaire, here to show you light and truth, as I perceive it. If you must use pronouns, feel free to use him, he, or my lord. We are here to observe, to discuss, to listen, and occasionally make some bloody sense out of this mad world.
I'm sorry, I love that. That was just the read on that. I'm so happy with it. Today,
I've got to hit the accents in different spots. That's just how it is.
You gotta, just keep it fresh, keep it light. Yeah. Today is a prosperity episode in which subject matter is usually a little heavier. We have a greater focus on current events and practical steps for everyday activism. One of the big reasons that I wanted to start doing this particular program is to make progressive causes more accessible to more people. I don't like the gatekeepery anywhere, but here in particular, we don't like that. And at the same time, during all of this discussion and observing and listening, we're going to be trying to learn together how to healthily process the 24-hour news cycle. And of course, even though it is a prosperity episode, there will inevitably be nerdiness, silliness, and timtomfoolery.
Today we'll be discussing how language, particularly the language of political movements, develops, bleeds into the mainstream, and often becomes co-opted by opposing political groups. Or else.
All right. And thanks to a joke Zodiac made a little bit earlier today, there was no doubt, influenced by his martial arts training, we have decided to call this phenomenon, if I can scroll to it because my other computer is not playing nicely. Bam! Political language judo! Yeah!
Hoorah!
All right, let's get us back here to our dual layout because we like that much better. Much better indeed.
I feel a bit better when I can actually see you in the conversation, I'll be honest.
Yeah. I'm monkeying around with it. The billing period just completely slipped by me for StreamYard last week. So we get it for another month. Okay. We might as well monkey about with it, eh?
Yep.
Now, of course,
if anyone knows a multiple platform streaming service, let us know because we will check it out.
Yes. I have heard not great things about Restream, but I mean, I am open to suggestion, willing to try different ones, so long as they, provide stability, I think is the main issue. Fancy features are great and all, but stream stability is probably the main thing. So, of course, before we delve into this linguistic lunacy that is the political language Judo, or what we have termed it, we must take the time to remind ourselves that we are, in fact, fallible human beings, and that the party strives to, at the bare minimum, remain chaotic neutral. All rise and lean slightly to the left for the reading of the Party Manifesto.
1. Whenever possible, supervillains must treat others with kindness, civility, and respect. One never knows who they might be addressing and what sort of day they've had.
Rule number 2, hate is hate and should be directed towards systems wicked and behaviors most foul, rather than toward individual persons and groups en masse.
3. Thoughtful deviation drives progress. Embrace your considerate deviance and let it guide you.
Rule the 4th. That's right, I did it this time. Aha!
Good.
Supervillain! Your thoughts are your thoughts and can never be taken from you. Your words said aloud and your actions in the world have consequences. Choose your words and actions wisely.
Rule 5. The party will not shun the ignorant, but willful ignorance is a crime of the highest degree, and rehabilitation must either be scheduled or performed on the perpetrator's own time.
And finally, the devil's number 6. The party, much like Socrates, knows for certain that they know nothing for certain, and reserves the right to refine and amend its manifesto on an ongoing basis. So now we jump right into it. What the fuck is political language Judo, and what do we mean by that? What is this phenomena? Phenomena.
Yes.
So you've probably heard multiple stories from various news media about the right, and I'm using that in quotes here because, again, trying to remain chaotic neutral. And that does not mean I am a centrist. I am a radical leftist who likes to avoid making generalizations because they almost never seem to end well. But you've probably heard news stories from multiple media sources about the right co-opting language and tactics typically used by the left. So, me and Zodiac. And some other people. I mean, are they really worth mentioning? Yes, they are. We are but a teeny fraction. Please don't, as we like to say, it's an unofficial rule, but it's like sort of lingering in the margins in pencil of the party manifesto. Stand no one, not even your favorite leftist political figure. Don't do that. So an example of you hearing this kind of story, a really common one, is about the term canceling. Now, that particular word, there have been some really great videos within like the last year and a half about people tracing the origins of that term. And for the moment, it's been traced back to the 1981 song Your Love Is Cancelled by the pioneering all-black disco band Chic. Now, that term cancel and canceling and canceled eventually became somewhat common in AAVE, that's African American Vernacular English, and it kind of reached its peak usage on Black Twitter like in the 2000s, 2010s. And eventually it kind of became more well-known to and used by people in the mainstream. Then suddenly, in the 2010s, well, not suddenly, it was sort of a gradual thing. A lot of conservative speakers, as well as right-wing YouTubers and Twitter trolls, started mocking what they called cancel culture. And I feel like that they put the word culture in there. Who knows who first decided that was the good noun to stick on the end of that. But I feel like the word culture is kind of instantly inflammatory with folks in more conservative circles. Like they hear the word culture and they go, "What? What are you trying to accuse me of? Stop it!" Instantly hate it. Instantly hate it. And then
there's a certain amount of xenophobia attached to that. No, outside of our culture, well, shit,
Yeah, well, and the term culture and the term identity are so like intertwined and frequently used with each other. And if it's culture, then that means colorful, then that means queer, then that means deviant, then that means feminist, whatever we're particularly scared of that day. Speaking of folks like in the same conservative circles, in addition to like, ranting against cancel culture and like basically calling the left a bunch of bullies, they also started like personally asserting themselves to be victims of the cancel culture mob, or another good one besides cancel, the woke brigade. Now their tone ranged from like, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed, could like trying to say like, I will be the bigger person here and I will take the high road. And it went like all the way from that to outraged and vindictive, as in like, I can't believe everyone's attacking me. I haven't even done, all I did was express an opinion. And like, obviously I'm being a little bit caricaturish there with the crying. I have to admit, despite my usual rules, I'm like, please don't attack individual persons, especially do not dogpile on them with tons of other people. Like that's not helpful. I don't care what you perceive them to have done. Like social media can become such a violent tool. Don't participate in that. Like you can still have your opinions. You can still respond to the behavior and tell a little bit about that. But that is kind of, I don't want to, well, no, I do. I want to say the overuse of the idea of a call out, the idea of like publicly declaring I am abstaining from this or that person, company, product because they did X, Y, or Z, or they promote X, Y, or Z, or they associate with X, Y, or Z. And I don't know. I'm a little bit mad about it.
I can tell.
because like on the one hand, it's been demonstrated, like a public kind of abstaining of and like a large group of people abstaining from a person, company, or product, and like attaching that to some kind of political message it can be a useful thing, and it can work. You can create change, you can spur change with that, but it unfortunately is like anything else on the internet. It can go too far, which brings me to the next point of the suddenly becoming outraged and vindictive and claiming to be victims of the woke brigade and the cancel culture mob. The usage of that, it's still continuing to be used, and it bears a striking resemblance to the old classics. The anti-racists are the real racists, and this is, insert almost any progressive idea here, run amok. So like, okay, fine, you had a good idea, but you took it too far. And while there may be a little bit of truth to that, more often than not, it's a deflection tactic. It is a way to turn the argument over so that it still looks like there is a debate happening on this, and that, well, maybe it's just a matter of opinion. Maybe there aren't, acceptable ways to treat people, and it's just kind of, it's just kind of what you're feeling. It's just kind of what you're feeling. It's a personal thing.
I think that also part of it is the idea of trying to negate the entire argument in and of itself. Sitting there and go, there is, and right now, of course, I won't remember the name of the YouTuber who does it. I'll look it up and put it in the show notes, but look up on YouTube the alt-right playbook.
Oh, yeah, it's Innuendo Studios.
Thank you. Just totally locked in my brain.
Yeah.
But they did.
I frequently reference his how to radicalize a normie video. Yeah. But I believe that is part of the alt-right playbook series he does.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
But one of them is always, but one of the things, and it ties hand in hand with the use of, excuse me, what I think of as linguistic judo is the notion of always being on offense. Mm-hmm. And always trying to find the next point to counterattack. And so by sitting there and actually abusing some of the terminology, such as identity politics, cancel culture, talking about racist being the real anti-racist being the real racist,
Yep.
these other things is an amazing, I mean, like seriously, it's a great piece of work from the George Orwell playbook, where you sit there and try to negate the meaning of a word or invert the word and turn it into something that is, where it becomes, instead of something where we can sit there and agree, okay, this is an issue. No, the actual term becomes an issue, and the actual means and methods of thinking about it are. And that's something.
Well, and that is some truly villainous shit. Like getting people to doubt the meaning of words, and to basically take a thing that was already in existence, that was being used to oppose you, and basically stealing the tactic of that and using it against them. It seems to take a little while, but eventually, like, and it seems to be happening just like everything else with technology, on an ever increasing curve, where they pick it up. Folks in more conservative and right-wing circles, they pick up that language and those tactics faster, and it's a little more and more seamless every time it happens. And so it becomes a little less obvious that in the same way, like, you've got internet trends, internet memes, internet slang that eventually make their way into adverts. And at that point, everyone's like, oh my God, can you like be any more, what's the word, the kids, chuggy? That's what I was trying to remember last time. Could you be any more chuggy? We're done with the slang. We're moving on to the next one. Goodbye. But that's like a really obvious tipping point with the language. But it seems more seamless now when it kind of transfers from the left to the right.
I think actually, I think you can go back and take a look at the way that the right adjusted to the giant-sized shock that was the 1960s, where basically we had a whole bunch, and we're kind of seeing a similar version of it happening now, where a whole bunch of issues that have been left unattended for quite some time. Racism, gender equality, the beginnings of what would become an LGBT movement, things along those lines, suddenly became at the forefront, where people started demanding that, look, you should recognize us as actual members of society with an equal stake in it. An immense amount of progress, and then a whole bunch of people realized, wait a minute, now we can use that energy of these people having moved into these spaces and now declaring, you can't call me fill in the blank, you can't do this. Well, hey, if I can't call you that, then then clearly you are attacking me and my culture. And away we go. And to be perfect, you can go back to the onset of the 700 Club and Jerry Falwell, thinking of one of the first real conservative boycotts that took place that had a really immediate effect. There's a TV show in the early 80s called Soap.
Hey, I know that show.
Yeah, it was a great show. Incredibly well written, really funny.
Yes, very, very fun.
And it really helped break out a number of characters from there. Billy Crystal really got his start in that. But Billy Crystal was possibly one of the first, if not the first, openly gay character on television. Yep. And Jerry Falwell.
That's huge.
Yeah, that was massive.
and of course, it's got to be a white man, and he has to be funny and kind of charming and likable. That tends to be what happens. They try to make a certain a certain type of person, or a person who belongs to a particular group in society. Like, no, as you say, they're not threatening. Like, look, they're fun. We can hang.
What, but Jerry Falwell and the Moral Majority immediately just kind of lost their minds over the very idea of portraying a gay character in a positive light, because he was one of the most likable, certainly one of the most understandable characters in the whole show. And all of a sudden, they put together a massive boycott against ABC, and then ABC eventually ended up canceling the show as a result of that.
Yeah,
And
how
that's when
many?
they really started. And that's
I guess
when they
it was
really
4
got-
seasons.
Yeah, I think it was like 3 or 4 seasons worth of stuff that was going on there. And it was an ongoing fight about that for quite some time, but eventually they were able to, get the show yanked. Long story short, I think that was when they realized that they could, and being a child of the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
it became an ongoing thing of this kind of culture battle that was happening between the elements of the conservative right versus the rest of us who just wanted to have a good time, listen to music, and watch the movies that we wanted to see.
So
and-
we would love to just like sit down and be quiet, because it's actually really tiring to keep fighting with you people about whether or not someone is a human being with, as you say, equal rights and equal stakes in society, because most of the time they contribute just as much, if not more, than the people that you are holding up to be, the ideal, the normative, the baseline.
Yeah. And also that kind of thinking of history and such, the ideal, the normative, the baseline, when we actually started taking a look, over the last few decades at the realities of American history, it again caused a lot of conservatives to lose their mind and say, you are attacking America as a culture in and of itself. No, what we're saying is that we should probably own up to the fact that there was slavery, genocide, a number of wars that were started specifically as land grabs.
Yeah.
How about we just own up to that?
Well, and like
I'm the beneficiary of all of this, so I can't bitch.
And of course, like there's a time and a place to discuss, like, it was bad, or it was, these people were a product of their time. Well, so is everybody, but there's a time and a place to discuss that. But most of the time, what we're trying to do, like, no, we just need to acknowledge it because it's a part of things. And I loved Abby Thorne's recent video on the idea of ignorance. And I love that she mentioned like willful ignorance, which I do not remember the Latin term for.
Right.
But we have willful ignorance right in the manifesto, because it is very much something that happens in the world, and we see happen all of the time in the United States. In my personal life, I'm kind of reminded of certain family members of mine who I totally, like, logically and also kind of emotionally understand why they are on like high alert to like take everything personally and be ready to defend themselves and lash back out and say, what about this? What about that? Or, just like really lean into it and just like, okay, fine, kill me, crucify me. And I'm like, well, no, it doesn't have to be all that. Like, I just need you to see that you did this thing and here was the effect of it. Don't love that. Could we avoid it in the future? I am not here to put you on trial and, paint a giant red letter, I don't know, C, let's say. That's mean, but no, I'm not here to, like, put you in the stocks in public and have everybody publicly ridicule you for what an awful, terrible person you are. That takes so much time and energy. Like, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help anybody out there who might be looking in and, getting off on wagging their finger at somebody. But of course, I love the whole thing. Like, when you point a finger, 3 more are pointing back at you. I'm like, yeah, but what about the thumb? The thumb is pointing upward. So really, God is the problem. Ah, yes.
There we are. I think that's also part and parcel of how the game is played in terms of verbal judo. And I'm now beginning to view it more as a game as I'm beginning to understand how the rules are played, or how the rules are structured for it. And one of them is something that you have been running into quite a bit, and I've seen as well, and that is that there is no allowance for criticism to be something that is constructive. Criticism is an attack, and criticism is a constant attack, and you should always respond to criticism as if you're being attacked. And you know what? I grew out of that when in my teens. But the problem is that we now have people who are growing back into that because they're being more comfortable responding to criticism by counterattacking rather than actually
Mhm.
looking at what it is that they did.
Well, and of course, I mean, that is one of the things that it comes back to is being comfortable. And one of the things that I'm always kind of trying to impart on people is, you should take care of yourself and you should take care of your brain, but also it's good to experience discomfort, because every time you do, you're going to be able to learn something about what is making you uncomfortable, or who is making you uncomfortable, and why. And do you need to do something with that discomfort, or is it something that like is kind of a passing thing, and you really shouldn't give any energy to it? That's because an echo chamber. Echo chamber is another one that gets thrown around a lot in conservative circles. Echo chamber. I'm like, well, everyone's in an echo chamber. That's kind of just what human beings do. When our brains are hit with like way too much new information, or information that just like really fucking rocks our worldview, we can either just be like totally stunned that we don't even really have a reaction to it for a while, or our brain immediately goes, nope, doesn't make sense. Quick, scream out about 5 things that we know for certain are true, and that will make the world realign again so we don't blue screen.
And I think that that's also kind of another part of the ongoing game, is that it does allow somebody to be able to, at least in their own mind, bend reality a bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that when you sit there, especially over this last year, when did the idea that vaccines, are a good thing suddenly just stop to exist? I haven't met anybody recently who has polio. I haven't heard of any smallpox outbreaks. But vaccines within a segment of our population, whether it be people who are, saying that they're going to get microchipped, or it might cause some sort of neurotypical disorder, or something along those lines. But I'm just sitting here looking at this like, do you guys not understand the fact that we are in the midst of a pandemic right now? But basically, vaccines have become a dirty word. I had a moment at work. I work at a hospital. And I'm literally hearing somebody in a ER base screaming that she didn't want to get a shot of antibiotics because she knew she was going to get that goddamn vaccine at the same time. And I'm like, this is like legit going to kill this person. Like, you have a staph infection, lady. You might want to get this. Just throwing that one out there. But part of it is the ability to sit there, and the use of this kind of political verbal judo exists in a way so that way it can help to reinforce your own sense of reality. It can also reinforce your own sense of confirmation bias. If I sit here and I keep throwing out the same set of words and never deviate from them, then I don't have to change the things that I feel most comfortable doing. But on the other hand,
stay here, my comfortable bubble.
Yeah. I mean, there are a bunch of friends of mine who I genuinely love and respect who are kind enough from time to time to challenge me on an idea, and I've got to sit there and defend that sucker. And if I defend it successfully, well, then it was a functional idea. And if I can't defend it, then you know what? Maybe I should examine my own behavior. And people really are not big on this concept.
Yeah, introspection can be difficult. I get it, babes. I get it. You kind of brought up a few times here, so I'd like to check on that little nugget. This negative connotation that some language, picks up along the way, and then even though it doesn't inherently have a negative meaning, like the word consequence. Consequence has a really bad connotation to it, because like, you must accept the consequences of your actions. Like, I mean, a consequence is basically just another word for a reaction, as in, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
It's just this thing happened, you performed this action, you said these words, and here is the result of you spreading that action / energy over here, and everybody else and everything else in the world bouncing back in response to it. It could be beneficial, it could be not beneficial.
But it's the response to those consequences that have really framed the conservative argument about how it is you're not allowed to have free speech anymore. I don't know if anybody slapped Joe Rogan upside the head recently, but his comment this week is one that was absolutely worthy of him getting smacked upside the head. You know, suddenly
did he do another one?
Oh yeah.
I don't listen to Joe Rogan. I don't have any particular opinion. But I know that recently there was something he said, I want to say about vaccine stuff, and he later said that was 3 weeks ago. That was weird. That was like dumb and tasteless of me. But no, what was this one?
Something along the lines of, with the way that we're going, white straight men won't be able to speak anymore, was basically the frame of it.
I mean,
I'm paraphrasing. You can look it up. I saw the clip on the Philip DeFranco show, and to me, I'm sitting there and I'm like, here's the thing. You can say what you want. Here, let's perform an experiment. Here's a great way to examine how
science.
Yes, science. Very much social science at this point. I have an idea. Why don't you go walking into a bar full of 1% biker club members and proceed to announce that you're feeling that bikers are fill in the blank with insults here, and discover how quickly your words can have consequences.
Golly gee.
You think? And that's the thing. But because of the fact that there are consequences, they're saying they're basically inhibiting your right to speech. No, people told you you're a fucking idiot. And sometimes you got to soak that one up. Because
when people are responding like that, like some of it is them saying, I don't personally like this, what you're saying makes me uncomfortable. And then when other people are saying, like, actually what you're saying is not helpful, it's not productive, it's not conducive to us like carrying forward as a society, so maybe just don't.
Yeah. And,
maybe don't.
You know, just sit there and go, okay, so for example, maybe it's just me, but if I go out there and I say something in the midst of a group of friends and it goes dead silent and somebody says, man, that was messed up. I kind of want to know why it was messed up. Not because I want to sit there and contest it. I want to know what landmine I was not aware of that I just tripped over. You know, I hang around with a lot of different varieties of people, and I am not aware of all the things that are happening within their, cultures. But as an end result, you do run the risk of opening your mouth, sticking your foot in it, and swallowing really hard. Anytime
you speak, like, it doesn't, if there is another person in the room, anytime you speak, you kind of have to accept the risk that you're going to say something that is going to land badly with one or more other persons. And
everybody's had the moment where you find the exposed nerve you didn't know was there.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh my God. People misspoke, or they said something that was a little tactless. Now, of course, I'm mostly referring to like in-person interactions, because online interactions with strangers are a whole different animal. Oh gosh, you said something earlier that kind of piqued my interest, and it was bringing me back around. In my kind of prep for this episode, it was my prep for this episode. I was looking into kind of the origins of the term woke, and just like cancel, where did it originate? It originated in African American culture and language and vernacular language. The origins can be traced to sort of situation, is back in the 1860s. It may or may not have been used, or not the word woke like we would use it necessarily, because it's kind of shifted over time, but current slaves, former slaves, black folks who had always been free, because they came over in kind of a different setting than being dragged over to work on a plantation. But the idea of being awake and staying wary, staying woke, it wasn't so much to like be aware and engaged with a particular political issue. It was basically be aware of the danger that white comfort and white prejudice, that those are dangers to you. So stay alert, stay awake, stay woke. That's kind of where it started with. There was also a movement of young men who were kind of rallying behind Abraham Lincoln when he was running in 1860, that called themselves the Wide Awakes. And unfortunately, most of what they had, or at the very least resonated with the idea of the abolition of slavery, but I unfortunately have not been able to find a whole lot as far as their motivations for that abolition of slavery goes, because back then, if you were against slavery or against the expansion of slavery, so the Union, the South, and then the new territories to the West, a lot of people were against the expansion of slavery into the Western territories.
Yeah.
And that was because they were afraid that these wealthy white slaveholders, specifically from the South, would buy up all that land and work it using slave labor, so that they would be kind of keeping the wealth all to themselves, rather than smaller like family farms could go buy up like smaller chunks of the land and work it themselves, along with some hired help. Folks who were U.S. citizens. So again, white folks.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't always necessarily. I don't know. It seems very rare back then that anyone ever explicitly said, "Hey, calling people non-human or subhuman because of the color of their skin, or any variety of their physical features, is wrong."
It's a rather it's an unfortunate substrata of our culture, especially back then. I mean, that issue is run rampant still throughout our society, but it's kind of weird for me to realize that at a certain point in time, if you were anti-slavery, you were a far, far hardcore radical.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like if you were to be pro-slavery, people look at you like you're from another planet. Change can happen, but the idea that there was a period of time where we just went, yeah, slavery, do the thing.
There was he was a Christian anarchist, which I think is just like a really cool part of American history, because they were anarchists in the sense that they believed that basically all human government, if it was not already, would become corrupt and had no ultimate authority over human beings, and that God was the only one who had sovereignty over that, and that governments should be abolished, and that people, just in their little clusters wherever they happen to occur, would kind of govern themselves, coming from the point of a godly love, if you will. So following the Jeebus.
Right.
And in that abolitionist movement, I can't remember the specific society name, but I know that a large portion of them, it was made up of Quakers, and a lot of Quakers over the years were involved in not just abolition causes, but like specifically anti-slavery and pro treating people like people. And again, you can't. Even though I can't find anything specifically about the Wide Awakes and their motivations behind being anti-slavery, we can't, even if they had written a bunch of stuff down somewhere, they were busy being young men desperate for a political ideology. They had a saying like, I think it's the old men are folding their arms and going to sleep. The young men are wide awake. And also, there's this image that usually goes along when folks are writing about the wide awakes. Something that was very characteristic of them. They all had like a dark cape and hat as part of the uniform. Eventually, they became kind of a paramilitary group, but also these torches that had like big swinging pots of whale oil on the top, and they would do like nighttime walks. When I was talking about Abe Lincoln earlier, when they heard him speak in 1860, he was speaking about the abolition of slavery and also the right of workers to strike. And these wide awake boys were like, yes, we are into that. Well, we are going to escort this, brilliant, wonderful man in the beginnings of the Republican Party, believe it or not.
Back in the day.
It's so weird how that shit just flip-flopped. Because back then, like, it seems like more of the folks who were in the Democratic side, or the Democratic Party, like capital D, were into more government control, more federal oversight of things. And or excuse me, other way around. The Democrats were more interested. They called themselves the party of the common man, and they wanted nothing that wasn't explicitly laid out in the Constitution to be left up to the states. Period.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line,
and that's
just blocked.
That's a side effect of time. Over a period of time, things will begin to change. Especially when the demographics of a party begin to change in the area. You can either move your political aspirations elsewhere, or you can sit there and move into your space. But again, that becomes a matter of what are you going to be a part of? Are you representing the people around you, in which case you're going to have to shift your politics? Are you representing yourself, in which case it's just power? Or do you have a vision of something that you want to do, in which case, that can make for an interesting, either political party or potential disaster, or both.
Why not both?
Yeah, why not both? Look.
Tell me if you just like do a quick Google of the wide awakes, so awake plus an S on the end to make it plural, you'll see this illustration of these young men going through the streets with these torches, and I didn't see any kind of references to the Charlottesville riots that happened with the Proud Boys specifically carrying the tiki torches. Like, everybody made fun of them. They're like, you got dollar store tiki torches that were made in China. Bah, bah, bah.
Yeah. But I think a lot of
also, well, and I wonder sometimes, like, do they draw? They always say we're the party of Lincoln. We're the party of Lincoln. They somehow draw these parallels from back then and the values that they held to the values that they hold now, and that confuses me a little bit. But specifically, do you remember, like, in specifically like Proud Boy? There are lots of clips of them saying, it's kind of unclear whether they're saying you will not replace us or Jews will not replace us.
There was an up close shot of some of them, and it started off with "you will not replace us," and then shifted to "Jews will not replace us."
Yeah,
it was like watching a.
Once other people heard a couple of other people like, "Oh, I'm not alone. I can be louder about it because I'm safe in the group."
And as much as I like the idea that they might have stolen that from a group of abolitionists back in the day, to be perfectly honest, I think a lot of, and I'm not just saying that because it's a stereotype of the far right, but part of me thinks that a lot of the tiki torch element of that and the way that it was done the evening before it all went south was taken from Triumph of the Will, the Rennie Leifenstahl movie that was about the Nuremberg rallies. And because there's an amazing image in there of, all of these brown shirts walking through the streets with these torches forming swastikas and such and marching clean. And it's an amazing image. It's terrifying as fuck. But, you can't get away from the idea that a lot of what they were doing was trying, and also the torches thing also goes hand in hand with the Ku Klux Klan, who would show up with torches and such at your house and would burn a cross and then burn your fucking house down.
Why you guys gotta be ruining torches?
Yeah, for me, Charlottesville is a personal matter to me because I have family who live there. My mom lived there for quite some time. My father died there. And that was something that when it happened really hit me in a very primal sort of level, because I'm looking at streets that I've walked down and areas that I'm very, very familiar with and going, this is just straight fucked up. And that was kind of like the weird thing about what I think of as the era of the Trump administration. Started with Charlottesville, where a lot of my family live, and then ended with Kenosha, the town that I grew up in. I was, come on, this is if I tried to write this, people would tell me
I couldn't have gotten this level of heart clench.
Yeah, but I think that especially with the Proud Boys and also the Daily Stormer, who were really important in putting together the organization of it. Again, thinking of these are the people that are always, especially, physically they definitely are always ready for a confrontation, but if you kept some of these guys online, and it's almost universally guys, you are going to wind up, again, on the wrong end of that. You are never defending. You are always attacking. But how about this? Well, what about this? What if we move to this? It becomes absurdo ad reductum in a weird sort of way to keep deflecting away from the central point of an issue and to change how the language is done.
Again, we come back to that judo reference in the title here. So coming at me with a thing, kapah. Coming at me with another thing, kapah. And then eventually just waiting for the right moment when your opponent is slightly off balance, their weight isn't totally censored. You do a throw, you do a jab, you get them in a chokehold. Yep. I don't know anything about judo.
We have a mutual friend who teaches it, so at some point in time.
I'm waiting for the day. Like I don't know how much I will be able to physically participate because I have bad joints. And because my arches are so high, I have a really easy time rolling my ankle. But I would like to at least learn a little bit, just so I can. I want to. In kind of circling back to like the word woke again, and woke brigade. I keep seeing all of these things that sort of circling around each other. It might be a different issue. The language at hand might be different. But what I've noticed recently is that it's not just, I never thought this specifically, like it's only folks on the conservative right-wing side that does this. It happens on the left too, because the use of like ambiguous, we'll say satirical, even though people don't know what satire means.
Satire is dead in this day and age. Yeah.
The word sarcastic and the word satire are far overused, and I don't want to police anyone's language, but I also want you to know what things mean. Like it's one thing when something becomes slang, like the word literally, which I still have mixed feelings about, but obviously I use it occasionally to mean metaphorically or figuratively. But yeah, the use of like ambiguous means. So like Pepe the Frog, as long as you can always kind of fall back on it's just a joke. It's not hurting anyone. As long as you can fall back on that, you have some credible deniability. And you can, well, I can't be responsible for what other people do with what I say and what I display on whatever social media platform I'm using. And the evidence that I can find all still generally shows that things like ambiguous memes, things like taking another political movement's bit of language and using it against them, that seems to be done more on the right than it does on the left, but it does still happen on the left. And folks on the left do, in fact, sometimes incite violence. They do.
Yeah.
But again, all the evidence that, credible evidence that is peer-reviewed and researched by a swath of journalists from various news sources. So, you have something of a consensus. It all still points to, generally speaking, the right is more incendiary. I think I pronounced that word correctly.
Yes.
And they are the cause of more violent acts, and I say violence both online and in the real world, because we're only just beginning to see just how much being on the internet all the time, and again that 24-hour news cycle, affects our brain chemistry, affects the way that we think about things, the way that we process information that's coming at us. When we turn it off, does it continue to affect us? We're only just kind of starting to dig into that. And so right now it's just the fucking Wild West.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is there's a really good history of the impact of, God, now of course I won't remember the podcast, but there was a history of the impact of 4chan and Anonymous, and how hacktivism revealed that there was a fair amount of power in the ability to sit there and put information out there. And then at a certain point, you had an element of that turned really hardcore to the right, or, we're sitting, got to the point of being against, a lot of what they felt were restrictions on free speech. Again, we're still back to speech versus consequences.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was the idea that that those guys really were able to take a look at the impact of memes, everything from cat macros to just kind of funny stuff. And
then the fucking okay sign.
Oh, geez.
Hey, we'll get people to think this is a thing for secret Nazis. But then it actually became a thing for secret Nazis, and now never know up is down.
But that's a functional tool, because what they were able to do by doing that was sit there and go, oh, well, you know how crazy those people on the left are. They think the okay sign means that you're, a far-right ideologue. So you see, those people are crazy, and they're always looking for enemies. And that was the means and methods of doing it. Those guys.
Well, and getting the people who are kind of politically ambiguous or politically more to the center or slightly to the right of center. As far as what passes for centrism in the U.S., kind of getting those people to be a little bit more on their side, rather than giving the benefit of the doubt to the people being accused of the thing. And that can be said for folks who are accusing people on the right of being secret Nazis, or blatant Nazis, whichever.
I can't think of Pepe the Frog without seeing the moment where Richard Spencer got punched in the face. I can watch that again and again and again. I'm just happy for that, because he was explaining the Pepe the Frog meme when he got punched in the face.
Yeah, he was. See, now that is irony.
Yeah, I was sitting, I couldn't stop laughing. Okay, again, going back
it's very pure. it's not wholesome, but it's pure.
Yeah.
In the sense that just it was so organic.
I have a very strong dislike of the Richard Spencer type, mostly based off of previous experience. I used to work as a bouncer at nightclubs, and we had a very hard and fast rule of no skinheads, no Nazis showing up at our bar. The second you're here, you're out.
There's another fucking thing. I'll hold on to that, but go ahead.
Hold that. There was one time where basically there was always the one reasonable guy who was not a skinhead and wasn't dressed like them and going, it's okay, just let my friends in and everything will be cool. We'll all, it'll all be okay. Long story short, they came in 45 minutes later, there was a fight and I got stabbed. From that particular moment on, the Richard Spencer type has always been on my watch list. If you're trying to talk getting your rowdy right-wing Nazi friends into the bar, no, I'm throwing you out first. I might punch you in the face along the way. If that is just a matter of survival.
It just happened. I don't know. As per usual, I say I do not endorse violence. If you happen to be in the right place at the right time, and you think it's a reasonable response, tread with caution. But do what you got to do. If there are people who are imminently in danger, and you can put yourself between the danger and them, do it. If you're able to do it, do it.
Yeah, to me, it's always, I've said this on numerous occasions, violence is the court of last resort. But if you've gotten me there, then we are not playing. This is not
exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, the thought that you were going to have in the midst of all of this.
Yeah, no, the thought that there was another fucking thing that got co-opted by fucking racist ass right-wing sons of bitches.
Yeah.
Was the skinhead movement.
Right.
These young working class kids in London, and it was music, it was fashion, it was kind of a labor working class centric ideology, like, don't let the rich keep you down kind of thing. It had a lot of resemblances to the punk movement. And then suddenly skinheads had this whole other fucking connotation because the trappings of it, the closely shaved head, the Doc Marten style boots, and eventually like red laces on the black boots became, like kind of a secret symbol to let the other people know, you guys were on the same page.
Then it became kind of the main guy.
Ruined it.
Yeah.
Ruined it.
But that's the thing.
Turn cool working class music and fucking white power music.
And that to me is something that I find particularly irritating, is that there doesn't seem to be anything that the right won't take there, especially the far right won't take and co-opt. Because, okay, the skinhead movement, punk, black metal, let's see, taking up, there's actually, I might ask you to link this in the show notes. I'm not often going to sit here and put together a piece of merchandise. And, I'm not the one who did this, but somebody sent it to me, and I went, "Oh, this is cool." Somebody took the Viking compass thing, and then replaced the runes on the outside with just "fuck white supremacy." And, right. For those of us who are pagans and have, like, I'm kind of, coming from an Irish family, I'm kind of, turned in a more Celtic direction. But I know a lot of people who are also true. I know a lot of people who are atheists, and they are fucking furious at these Nazis stepping in.
Oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes.
It's something that gives everybody in it
multiple bones to pick. Multiple bones to pick. Yeah, I am not like exclusively Nordic type of heathen, but I have a lot of jewelry that is very significant to me, particularly with the two ravens, Hanan and Manan, and occasionally on there will be some type of rune, or I forget the name of the wheels off the top of my head, and I don't know why I can't remember. I can't remember. It's okay. they're basically just like sigils of protection, usually. But then things like Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
It's difficult to like be able to sport anything with that on it, or hell, even anything with Nordic runes on it, because so many people now associate that with white supremacy, with Nazism, and that's not cool. Odin doesn't approve.
Yeah. To me, it's,
he told me.
Again, that whole use of language. Odin did not go out and suffer the way that he did and fight the way that he did to find the goddamn runes so that way you could sit there and use them to basically trash people of other ethnic groups.
He fucking cross-dressed and wrote poetry, so
yeah.
Suck it.
Yeah, to me, there's something about those. I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine who is a huge death and black metal fan. And he's sitting there going, it's weird because now I have to spend a lot of my time, I'll hear about a band and I have to do my research and find out if I'm supporting a group of Nazis or not. And that's how badly it's gotten in the black metal, death metal world. And there's also an element of that. There's been an element of that. I'm a musician in industrial music. And there's been a few bands that have been flat out busted for having active members of like Nazi parties and such.
Yeah.
In there. Okay, fine. Actions, consequences. The pretty much the entire scene turned against.
What is that? Rule number 4, I think. Choose your words and actions wisely.
Yeah, I mean, Han just put up a thing about ancient Vikings apparently traded with people across the world as far as Turkey, India, and North America. I mean, these are the people who were like, here's a boat, keep going until you see land, wherever it might be. So they had access to all
very, very similar to Polynesian wayfinders in that sense.
Yeah. But there's always that element of going out and traveling to find the next piece of things that you don't know. And that's something that I absolutely love about the Odinist and Viking culture. And I think that is something that unfortunately has become, again, co-opted by the far right, who are saying, we should be proud sons of the North. There is a weird, the one thing that I kind of wish, Natalie Wynn took down a lot of her videos from the early part of her...
From her early days, yeah.
And the
transcripts still exist on her website, but at the same time, for a lot of people, it's not the same as in... watching a video is not necessarily the same for folks. It doesn't necessarily have that same visceral emotional reaction, but I completely understand why she did. I get it.
I totally get it.
It's painful for her.
The only thing that I really wish that she had not taken down was her ongoing battle for quite a while with the Golden One. Oh God, that was so priceless. Seeing Natalie running through
ContraPoints, you're still a degenerate, and there's not going to be a place for you in the ethno state. But I still like her videos and think are funny and cool.
Yeah. And I kind of want to pay for a plane ticket for the two. I don't know if the two of them have ever met in person.
Right.
But I want to sit down and listen to that conversation.
Oh my God. And I can see her totally doing something like that. Just, you know what? I'm in the place where the Golden One lives. You want to go out for a beer? Let's have a beer. We don't ever have to talk again after this, but for funsies.
Yeah, let's do that.
I mean, she offered to buy JK a beer, so
I think
I'll buy you a beer and apologize for all the mean kids on Twitter.
And again, actions, consequences. But to me, it's that element of, it's something that has, within some circles, gotten Natalie into trouble with some of the more, what I like to think of as extreme elements within our own movement of sitting down and going, well, why are you talking to these people? Because without communication, there is no conflict resolution. You either communicate or you conquer.
Yeah,
these are pretty much your options on conflict.
So I'm sorry to say, capital T, capital L, the left. We are not conquerors. We are osmosisers.
Yeah. We kind of move in. Hey, what's up? Do the thing.
Yeah. We're here to progressively nudge things along, because if you stay the same forever, it won't be forever. You will perish because things are going to change around you, whether you like it or not. Things are going to change within, like within conservative movements. Even there are people who leave, like the more far right radical sides of things, and hell, even people who are just kind of like, well, we'll say wishy-washy Republicans, going like, man, this is too much bullshit. I'm out. And even just like they're like, look, I don't want to pay more taxes, but I really don't give a fuck about who I vote for.
It's a bit.
It's been known to happen, but yes, the left, we are not conquerors. That's not who we are. So we have to keep talking. That's one thing we do a lot of. We talk, and occasionally action is good. Not even occasionally. I would say like you've got to have equal amounts, and in addition to that, you've also got to have thought. So personal introspection.
But also, going back to the linguistic judo thing, a lot of what it is that is being done with what I think of as linguistic judo is that it's specifically designed to limit the actual ability to communicate. If I'm sitting there and constantly attacking, then I'm not listening. I am just waiting for the next point that I can sit there and attack your point with. And the more that you're attacking my points, the more that I am sitting there going, I really don't want to be a part of this anymore. I would just as soon prefer to sit down at lunch with people who I don't agree with and then have a conversation and go, all right, we're not doing that thing. We're doing this thing.
Just make sure you're eating with chopsticks, because forks and knives are too reminiscent of the instruments of war. So I think was that a Confucian thing?
Yeah.
That they switched to chopsticks because it was less violent at the table and promoted diplomacy between warring communities.
Having had the moment where again, the benefits of growing up in an Irish family, but having had the moment where cousin and I did our level best to try to stab one another with forks at the dinner table. I'm kind of with Confucius on this one.
Han has brought up a thing here, and I wanted to ask you for a bit of clarification. Oddly, in bodybuilding forums, there tends to be a lot of racism. Not sure what causes it, but they seem to be obsessed with racial purity. So I missed the bodybuilding portion of it. I just saw like building forums, but I understand what you meant now. I think that is kind of a weird thing. I as far as the eugenics side of it go, I guess I can see how people who like are already super, super obsessed with like knowing the exact details of their genetic history, so that they can kind of like plan out what their body is capable of getting from point A to point B. B for buff. Or maybe point R for ripped.
Yeah.
Or what's the other one? Swole. That's the other one. Swole. Not to be confused with small. Small is different. What do I have? Do I have small friends? I have a small Totoro here. This is small. And do I have anyone who is swole? Skeletor is swole. You can't see it in his Lego form, but
yeah, he's got some muscles.
He got abs. I've got some of my favorite villainous friends in the background here. I know you can't really see them all. There's a little bit of a tangent.
Steve Johnson in the background.
Yep. He used to say things every time you walked past him, but then it started happening when no one was in the room, so we had to turn him off.
I can understand it.
We had to shut down the lab. Actually, that sort of reminds me. There is Yep, there she is. I don't think she's too happy that
we've been ignoring her. She gets irritated about that.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, we can't talk about this right now because we're running short on time. I'm just gonna, turn you back off there. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. We'll talk about you more another time, maybe in 2 weeks' time. So we've got about 15, 20 minutes left. Is there anything there? Oh, I remember there was one thing, and I'll kind of hand it over to you if you wanted to add any additional thoughts. The whole wide awake thing. The reason that I was bringing it up before with the Proud Boys is my brain kind of drew a line from the Wide Awakes and their whale oil torches to the Proud Boys and their tiki torches in Charlottesville to QAnon, where a frequent piece of rhetoric of the supporters of this imaginary figure is that we are wide awake, and that that seems to be kind of a co-opted thing, because
that's a co-opting though of, and this is if anybody who's watching this, if you get the opportunity, listen to a podcast called QAnon Anonymous. It's absolutely amazing.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it takes the piss completely out of QAnon, and I love it. But one of the terms that comes up, and it's something that has been happening an awful lot in terms of the right, and specifically QAnon, but a number of other ones, is the idea of being red-pilled. And now you're...
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Stop ruining the Matrix.
They're sitting there going, wait, don't stop it.
Oh, God, the poor Wachowski sisters.
It's such a co-opting of their actual vision of what was going on that I'm like.
Well, and of course, like they didn't originate the idea. I can't remember if it was you or Moof or somebody else who was like saying, just so you know, Matrix basically got all its shit from this other movie. I'm not talking about that right now, but if you ever have a chance, again, I'll link it in the show notes. There is a very interesting book called Philosophy and the Matrix. I think there's a number of books in that series that looks at like different pieces of media within the context of different philosophies that it utilizes. And within the Matrix, there is a lot of Buddhism, specifically Zen Buddhism, both imagery and just straight up phrases that are being used in that context, and the whole like wide awake thing. Neo wakes up from being in his little human energy battery capsule pod, and he has to choose: do you want to stay asleep or do you want to wake up? And that whole it's a repeated theme throughout the trilogy, being awake versus being asleep. And then you eventually have someone who is a part of this group of rebels who has been awoken, but didn't want to be. He wants to go back to being blissfully unaware. He wants to choose ignorance so that he doesn't have to deal with the harshness of reality. He just doesn't want to do it. And he is willing to sacrifice the other people in order to get back to that, which, God, I've always kind of wondered. I don't remember that particular character's name, but when he's kind of bargaining with the agent, I don't remember what they call him. God, it's been a long time since I've watched those movies.
It was Agent Smith, yeah.
Agent Smith, thank you. All I'm thinking of is the actor in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Yeah.
So, no one is more awesome than someone who can be like a completely ripped, gritty action star, but then also play a drag queen.
True that.
It's the same thing with I think he played Zod in one of the Superman movies.
Yeah.
Was also in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. And then the third one was the guy from, I want to say, Memento.
Yes.
Or, yes. Yeah, all three of them, like, buff, gritty action star, fabulous drag queen, best, awesome, mwah, perfect, beautiful.
And then there was Tu Wong Fu, which also, I mean, you've got. We'll get back to an actual point in a bit, but
I swear I have one.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw Han
Wesley
gave me the
Snipes
name of the
and-
character Cypher.
You've got Wesley Snipes, and of course I won't remember his name right now, and I feel bad, but he was the lead in the House. Yeah, it's been a tricky sort of day, but I love it when people are willing to step forward and go, I don't care if you think that it might damage my career. This is an awesome film, and we're fucking doing it.
Yeah. Are you talking about Hugo Weaving?
Yeah, any of those people. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
They're just all awesome.
You know, it works out fairly well that way.
But yeah, so that co-opting of this Buddhist idea of being awake, and suddenly you are enlightened, and it's kind of turned into this. I kind of want to slap a toxic masculinity type of sticker on it, as far as, because like they made it a competitive thing. Like, you're either asleep or you're awake. Like, I mean, yeah, that's kind of the nature of the two things. I mean, you could also say, like, there are people who are like sort of in a half dream, half awake state. I experience it all the time. But okay, if you want to stick with your binary, all right. But they made it a competitive thing. So if you're not awake, you're trash. And that goes, with, people on the incel side of things on the internet who, are co-opting that term red pilling. And at the same time, there's a reason that woke scold has become a term, which is kind of what got me started thinking about this. Was I was with a couple of friends playing board games the other day, because we're all vaccinated now. Yay! And we were talking about some term or other, and I was like, well, hey, I don't want to woke scold you. And they're like, I'm sorry, excuse me, what? And so I got to explain the term woke scolding to them. And I mean, that is also a thing, that instantaneous locking out and isolating yourself and the people who are exactly in line with you. Now, I don't think that it's as nearly prevalent on the left as the internet makes it seem. And I don't think it's as nearly prevalent as conservative talking heads like Tucker Carlson would like you to believe, or Jordan Peterson. I don't know if he's still on the woke brigade. He's probably still calling them postmodern neo-Marxists.
Again, for me,
sure. Whatever you got to do.
I think that the worst of the wokes. Okay. I think the worst.
No, not you. That's something that Contra does in her video.
Yes.
When she's in the bath.
That was the first ever video I saw of hers, and I'm just like,
it's
I have
so
no idea what the
perfect.
hell you're doing, but I'm in. Okay. But I think the worst woke scolding is actually people who are actors in bad faith, who are like, hey, look, somebody is now in the midst of a controversy. Let's find how many things that we can sit there and hammer on someone, because that is the only way I will feel powerful in my life. I think that there are people who love to sit there and go, can we throw liquid oxygen on a fire?
That seems like a good idea, right? Why not? Let's do that. Seems like fun.
Yeah.
We'll talk to Mythbusters and see if Jamie has anything to say about that.
I don't know. After watching Lindsay Ellis's video and seeing that there's basically kind of like a list that some of these people have to go after various YouTubers, and I'm like, why would you go after, for example, Jenny Nicholson? Jenny's
right?
really sweet.
No.
Yeah.
You want to talk about pure and wholesome, Jenny?
Right. But there is an ongoing thing of, I think that there is another subculture that we could tear apart at some point. Mind you, we'll pay a price for this, but we're villains.
What is the price of admission? Okay, Here we go.
But I think that there is a subculture. I mean, it's pretty obvious that it exists, but there is a subculture within the internet that just exists to find something and then just point to it and then see how many people you can get to trash it just for your own entertainment.
Mm.
It's not a left thing. It's not a right thing. It's just a dick thing. And it drives me kind of insane to watch, to see the number of people who are doing that.
Sorry, I'm responding to Han. He's telling me that I'm gonna make him need to go pee, and I can't tell if it's because like my mic is being shitty or if the way that I'm laughing is just.
No, your mic has been fine. So.
Well, that's good anyhow. But yeah, this what I keep coming back to with all of this, the political language judo, like anything, any term, any tactic is eventually going to be co-opted by opposing political forces. And when I say political, I don't mean registered political parties. I also mean unregistered political parties, perhaps parties for prosperity network. Yes. Supervillainy.
Let me tell you about
but just like any yeah, like any movement really. I mean the word political is yet another word that has like a negative connotation to it. And to be fair, I was part of that group for the longest time because my mother and my grandfather would argue incessantly, and I still don't know to this day how he was like a staunch Democrat, and then my mother, and she's very proud of this, brought him over to the Republican side of things. And I'm like, I don't know how you got there. I think, were you just rebelling against your dad? All right, do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do.
You do,
please. God, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, but yeah, political isn't inherently negative. It's not necessarily combative. Everyone has a politic. It's just a fact of life. Your personal politic is what you believe in, the values that you hold, and the way that you enact those values or don't in the world. And your politic might be, I'm not going to participate in any kind of cultural discussion. I don't want to hear about, political elections. I don't care. I'm just living my life. I'm like, all right, that's your personal politic. You go on and you do you. You stay asleep. No, because again, it's not a fucking competition, okay? And there isn't just asleep and awake, okay? There's varying levels, and we all like kind of go back and forth throughout our entire lives because we're always learning new things, and sometimes things happen in our lives, or the environments that we're in just kind of lends itself to us kind of shrinking back in, and we're just like Cypher. We want our will for ignorance back, okay? It's really fucking hard to deal with the fact that the world is so shitty. The world is on fire. It's full of goddamn Nazis. People are reducing, women with uteruses to baby-making machines. And they are treating people who don't conform to whatever the doctor said their genitals looked like on that day. The doctor may or may not have been drinking. We don't know. But, people who don't conform to that, whether that's in the way that they express themselves and what they should do with their lives, if that, graduates into having a gender identity that doesn't fit with what other people tell you it should be. Sorry, I'm getting lost. We all go back and forth with this stuff, and it's not a fucking competition to be awake.
Yeah.
And like as far as like language and tactics that are being used for progressive causes getting co-opted by the right, sometimes I think it's good to fight and say, actually, no, you're distorting what that word means, and you're also ignoring the context from which it arose. And woke and cancel are two of those words that I think you need the context from which they arose. They came from Black spaces, and they came about for specific reasons, and you need to be aware of that, and you need to acknowledge it. And then sometimes you gotta let a word go because it's not worth fighting over. Instead, We can come up with different hashtags, and the on the technique side of things, on the tactic side of things, like using humor and satire to kind of put people at ease in the way that, say, Philosophy Tube and ContraPoints do. They use humor, often a lot of self-deprecating humor, and the occasional deprecation of someone else, as a way to kind of bring the topic a little bit more down to earth, make it not so all up here and out of reach for people, which is part of the reason that I appreciate both of their work so much. Is because they don't want this stuff to be out of reach for people. They want it to be as accessible as possible. They know that a lot of the people watching them, like you and me, like we're already pretty much in line with the same kind of thinking. We might disagree, here and there on a couple of details, but overall we have the same general desire for the world to be a certain way. For people to be treated a certain way, and to prevent huge atrocities happening, if at all possible. If we can try, at the very least, can we fucking try? We should just try. But yeah, I think this would, like all of our episodes, I mean, we're only 15 in so far, but at the same time, I have not yet congratulated us for continuing to stick with it, and putting on another episode. And today we were on time. Yay. And we're going to end vaguely on time, and actually that brings me to another point. It is about that time, my devious darlings. Next week, there will be no episode, as I congratulate myself too soon. Because instead of me unleashing a horrific rain of kindness and curiosity and introspection on the world, I will be the victim of supervillainy. I am being kidnapped to an unknown location for the entirety of Memorial Day weekend. What lies in store for me, I know not. No. But whether or not I survive this dastardly plot, I will still be uploading a little something to tide you over into the following week, which will deliver unto you a popcorn episode. Be sure to join us, because we'll be talking about the best and the worst pets for supervillains, and I'm sure many other silly things, and eventually me gnashing my teeth and foaming at the mouth about capitalism will also happen. It is inevitable. Yeah. It is inevitable. There are 3 things in life that you can be certain of, even for those of us who are hardcore Socratics: death, taxes, and cat ranting about capitalism. Yeah. Doctor, do you have any subliminal messages that you would like to I mean, any thoughts? Any thoughts you would like to share before we sign off this evening? And again, that can be related to what we just spoke. I wanted to see if you had any additional thoughts and things linked to this topic that we might discuss in the future.
We actually have it in one of the rules, but consider your words wisely. But also, when you're sitting there and somebody's driving completely nuts with their use of language, realize that what they're basically doing is imitating what they have been told is the best way to handle talking to you. So figure out ways to break into the game. Figure out ways to break the rules that they play at, and actually open up some real communication. So it's good to learn the rules, and then you can decide whether they are useful rules or whether they are rules that would be good to break, and to share with others why you think they need to be broken. It's the classic. I want to say it's a Miles Davis quote, but you learn the rules so that way you know how to break them.
Very good. Very good. I would like to say, before we do sign off, thank you all so much for spending your time with us. And new subscribers to my channel, I see you. I see you creeping me up to 150. You cheeky little buggers, you. And that just tickles me pink, which is saying something, because I really dislike the color pink. I would like you all to please remember to drink your water. Just talk nicely to yourselves, and keep doing the best with what you got. It's all we can do. We can only do the best with what we've got at the time. And I believe it was Angela Davis who said, when you know better, do better. So as I always like to say, be sure to take the time to do something purely for the joy of it, even if only for 10 minutes. And then later on, take another 10 minutes to do absolutely nothing. May your fortnight be a pleasant one, and we shall see you next time. I would like to say this meeting of the Party for Prosperity and Supervillainy has come to a close. We are adjourned. Get the fuck out and hug somebody. Hug somebody and say, I don't care that you say words that infuriate me. You're still human, and you're okay. Good night, y'all.
Good night, everyone.